Okay. Thank you, Leslie. Brenda, en breve, en la conversación que estaba ahorita teniendo con Leslie en referencia de lo que es las horas de servicio para los jóvenes, le mencionaba que no es tanto el número de horas, sino la calidad de servicio que puede dar el joven, que nazca también del joven decir, este ambiente me gusta y quiero contribuir, y que sea algo de esa manera a que se le dé, o que tienes que dar cierto tiempo de horas para como requisito para poder calificar para una beca. También el no caer en que se pidan demasiados requisitos al punto que el estudiante pues se sienta muy presionado y ni siquiera quiera aplicar para una beca por todo el proceso de requisitos, ¿verdad?
Exactamente, sí, de hecho nosotros la hacemos así más light, pero con ese compromiso de los chicos.
Okay.
Lo que ellos imparten, inclusive sale como opción de ellos, porque de esa manera ellos le imprimen un poquito más de energía y nos ha quedado muy buen sabor de boca porque los niños, tienen muy buena información y las dinámicas que manejan han sido buenas porque retornan, como son ciclos con los chicos, cuando viene el ciclo ellos retoman el tema y se acuerdan muy bien los niños, entonces como son muy dinámicos, los estudiantes pequeños pues recuerdan bien la información. Ahora sí que estás correcto en lo que dices, no es el tiempo, es la manera en cómo lo exponen y y que les queda el aprendizaje a los que están apoyando.
So basically, Brenda, what is she, if she was sharing, is that basically that's the requirement, that it doesn't seem too overwhelming in terms of asking for too many hours. Instead of asking for that in terms of hours, they put different options for the student to pick on an option and say, where would you like to help? And when they pick the area of service, and they have and they have seen that they have a positive feedback when the other students actually assimilate materials based on the tutoring from the other students, because they make the activity dynamic. So it's a willing participation. They don't feel forced. They feel that they're contributing. And as a consequence, there is a positive feedback towards their participation as tutors.
Well, for sure, for sure, for sure. So, okay. Well, then the key to it, we cannot, I guess we can discuss what we think. I don't know how you tutor for 2 hours a month and make it meaningful, but maybe you can.
Brenda, ¿tú crees que se toman un poco más de 2 horas los estudiantes al mes para hacer tutoría?
Sí, un poquito. A veces, hola, buenas tardes. Sí, a veces nos pasamos un poquito de las 2 horas.
¿Y las clases de tutoría son una vez al mes o cada cuándo?
Cada semana tenemos una tutoría por los chicos.
So they have tutoring once a month, once every week. ¿Y qué más?
For 30 minutes?
¿Por cuánto tiempo es la tutoría con los niños una vez a la semana?
Son 2 horas porque repetimos con diferentes estudiantes.
¿Cuántos estudiantes participan en una tutoría de 2 horas?
Es uno por semana, que viene siendo su actividad una vez por mes.
Entonces es un estudiante por 2 horas por semana. So basically what she's saying is one student gives 2 hours in 1 week, 2 hours in one tutoring. Oye, pero son 2 horas en una actividad de tutoría.
Sí, y a veces inclusive los chicos piden quedarse más tiempo porque como lo hacen por medio de juegos, Entonces, pues los chicos no se quieren ir y ellos quieren seguir participando.
Okay, so yes, it's in a one tutoring session is 2 hours and it's once a week. And even Brenda is saying that sometimes the tutoring session gets dynamic, that students ask for more time. Okay. Pero ya en estas 2 horas, en una semana, ya un estudiante ya no tiene que repetir una tutoría en todo el resto del mes.
Por lo regular, bueno, el becado no repite hasta su siguiente mes. Por eso, por ejemplo, ahorita como tenemos 4, cada una semana, un becado por semana da tutoría.
Okay.
Por eso todo el mes tenemos tutoría, todo el mes.
So basically,
Y
Brenda is saying, discúlpame, Brenda. Brenda is saying that right now they have 4 students, 4 scholarship recipients. And each one of these 4 students, they give 1 tutoring time a month. So, and they're having 4 weeks a month. So they use
Right.
the 4 students this every month.
Right.
It sounds pretty organized.
Yeah, it sounds organized.
¿Quieres decir algo más, Brenda?
No, pues ahora sí que pues solamente es la dinámica que nos ha funcionado y que hemos visto inclusive a los chicos de una manera muy participativa y inclusive los estudiantes de primaria, porque son los que más atendemos, son los que les piden temas a los becados y ya ellos preparan y en la siguiente clase pues ya dan el tema que los chicos pidieron. Entonces sí vemos el interés por parte de los estudiantes hacia los becados, sobre todo porque se genera un vínculo de confianza.
Okay, so Brenda says that this dynamic has been working well because it generates a trusting
No,
relationship.
I understand the value of tutoring. That isn't it. So I guess what we need to decide, if 2 hours a month is all we're requiring, then to have them do a presentation to Rotary, et cetera, on I work with this student, and I guess maybe that works. I mean, I'm not saying that what she's doing is not important. It's extremely important. I'm just wondering how much involvement we want. We haven't decided how much scholarship we're giving either. So, so that's, that's another issue. I mean, she has 4 students and she's working with them and they all work in a month. We're going to have more students doing all sorts of different things. So it will be hard to have it as organized, but well, I don't think we're going to get anywhere on that right now. What we can do is have that when they meet with us and we come up with the plan for that student, then it will be decided how much they should do, and those plans will vary widely, and that might be a problem down the road, but
maybe we should come up with the list, in which I think you already did.
I already did.
Came up with the list of options where they could, provide service and give them that option and see how that works out. Because we need to also keep in mind how many of us are actually going to do this work of evaluation. As
Right.
it is, it's difficult to keep people
Right,
engaged.
that's well, exactly. But if they're working with the school or they're working with an organization, then it's up to them to work with that organization and be able to report back what they did and to write it up and to have the people sign off that yes, they showed up and they did what they were supposed to.
And there is I don't think there is a huge number of university students in Santa Anita. Would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it would be like an overwhelming number for for the club to work with. Okay.
Okay. Anyhow, so we will,
Miriam,
Sí, Brenda.
me voy a tener que retirar
Ujú.
porque vamos a iniciar aquí un taller de nutrición. Estamos en Primo Tapia
Ajá.
y
Okay,
y,
so
y ya estamos aquí con las personas y la nutrióloga.
okay.
Es uno de las actividades que les compartí que estábamos haciendo, que ya nos expandimos, ya no solamente en Santa Rita, ya también estamos viniendo a Primo Tapia.
Oh, qué bueno. So she's gonna have she's excusing herself because right now she's starting a nutrition workshop that started in Santa Anita and now it's moving towards people of Primo Tapia.
oh, good.
Muy bien, gracias, Brenda. Claro que sí. Pues gracias por la información y te mantendremos informada.
Ok, claro que sí. Bye bye, Miriam.
Bye, saludos.
Leslie.
Bye, bye. Gracias.
Okay.
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 Well, I don't know. I guess we can see what we think. So we have two questions then. One is how much service work is required at the university, which may be not much. And I was surprised to hear him say it. And I might have misunderstood what he said, but it sounded like it was a whole lot. It sounded to me like the university had students go out and volunteer and did their practicums that way. That was how he didn't say it that way, but that's how I read it as a program that, because the practicums are not paid. So yes, you need to do so much work with the hospital. You need to do so much work with the teachers if you're in education. And that's how you get your student teaching, if you will, or your whatever covered. So
Okay. And I didn't pick up who said that. I'm sorry.
Danielle is who I'm referring to, and I might have misunderstood what he said, but that's where that information came from in my head. So I can get back to him and have him clarify.
Oh, okay, Daniel.
That would be good, because I thought, Germany, if they're already doing a whole lot of volunteer, but I think it might be kind of practicum work, but it's kind of the same. Or we can get a better.
I was inviting Danielle to our meeting, but he said he was not available until 5. He was only available earlier. And we couldn't actually, but I was inviting him to our meeting.
Oh yeah, he would be really helpful.
He was not able to.
Okay.
So
we can find that out if students are already doing a lot, and it may be totally depending on what university they're going to. That might be a major part of their program, or it might not be. But if they're already doing some major projects that way, then I would be comfortable having that count as their volunteer work. They just write it up for us. And somebody else is already organizing it. It's in their field. No sense us trying to organize something in their field. They know what it is, and their professors do. And if there are things that fall out, that would be wonderful. So, and I think, so if we did that, then I think that would be helpful. And I'll check back with him to see if that's already built in. I didn't want to do an add-on to a major service requirement from the university, if in fact that's a common thing.
Okay.
Patty got back to us. Well, he got back to us. This scale came from him through Patty. I don't know who she sent it to, but we need to decide what we want for minimum GPA. So I understood him to say that the kind of the 100 was the percentile score, or out of 100 students, that way. Yes. If you were in the top 10 out of 100, or the top 20 if you were at 80 or above. But I think he kind of backed off of that. I
Do
don't
you
think.
want me to show the chart? I don't see it. I only see
Oh,
the two files.
It's a, oh, I'm sorry. It's up on my screen, but it says your screen sharing is paused.
Oh, that's, I see. No,
And okay, I'll stop sharing and then let me try again.
okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you didn't have it. Here we go.
There it
You're-
is.
There it is.
And I'm sorry, Leslie, you said there is two questions. How much service work is required? And what was the other question? Was it GPA?
Can there, if they're already doing service work for the university, can that count as their service time?
Oh, thank you.
Those are kind of and it might be that we just focus on the project that they do, and then you need to do whatever it takes to get your project done. And I mean, there's a real downside. I can see them focusing on hours because it's like, okay, I hit my hours, I'm done. But we need to have kind of a consistent approach on it, because I did my 2 hours this month, I'm done, and then somebody else is working in Rotary Kids and they end up doing, 4 hours a week or something else. And then it's like, well,
Mhm.
and maybe we're okay with that. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're just doing a different project, but they're busy too, so that, it's just, I don't know. We just kind of think it through. So it seems that we're being fair to everybody.
I see. Yeah.
And because otherwise they'll go, okay, what's my one that gets me to and out? Okay, I'm doing that one. And and who would blame them on the other hand? But there's some, so I don't know. But we could just focus on the projects to begin with, and then if we're realizing that things are being inequitable, we can put the minimum in later.
Mhm. Yes, and as I said, perhaps not measuring their service per time, but actually just per serving activity, depending. It's another option.
It is. It will be tougher at the end when we're doing funding decisions and we see real discrepancies at whether,
Mhm.
but maybe that's
once
it.
we collect the data, we'll see what worked and what didn't work. That would be
Yep, we
very
will.
helpful.
And if we don't feel like we're doing the service part, then they may not get the funding the next time, and it might go to the people who are, however, whatever we decide.
Okay.
So, okay. So GPA. So we can, the two examples we have are Father Jesse, minimum GPA is 8.0, and Becca is 8.5.
Well, if it's 8.0 or 8.5, it goes under B, which is it's good standing.
Right.
Okay.
But we need to decide on what it is, because so yeah, neither one of those is a wrong answer. It's just that we need to decide so I can put it on the papers so that they know, and they don't say, well, I passed all my classes. What do you mean? I got C's.
Why do you get C's?
Yes.
Yeah,
Or if we think that's fine, if you passed them, we're fine with it. But for a scholarship, perhaps we want to be more selective than that.
Yes, it's interesting because when Father Jesse was telling us that the requirement was between, within the 80s, which is a B or an 8. I remember Tony Nevares, he said, I want the C students. And he said, what? He said, I want to sponsor C students because I want them to get better. And he wants to see their improvement, because Tony himself, he considered himself not a very good student, but he pushed himself to where he is. And he said that he believed that a C student can get better if the student gets different kinds of supports, and that's why they work on the student as a whole human being, right? Why is it affecting the students' grades? Is it because there's not enough food on their table, or because there is social economic issues at home, or if there are mental health issues for the student? And that's
Or
one of
if
the
they're just
reasons.
all out partying.
Or they're just out
Yeah,
partying or doing
Yeah.
something else.
yep,
So
yep.
there's different issues for which the student may have low grades.
Mhm.
Nevertheless, we had, again, it's the importance of knowing the student and see if the student knows that somebody else really cares for them to reach their goals and to have a better life. Perhaps in some students may be a very positive experience, which has been for Father Jesse. Not in all cases, as you know, life is not perfect and we can help people as much, but some people cannot help themselves.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't know, there could be exceptions for those students with a C, if people who knows them may know why, and if there is a possibility for the student to get better grades with some help.
Okay.
I don't know.
I can't, well, I would rather, I think we're ahead to set a standard and make an exception than we are not to set a standard and then realize we're just spending money on people who are not very serious.
Yes. Maybe,
Not
yes.
that every C student is not serious. I mean, I worked at the university for a long, long time, but at least where I worked, most you just had to be focused and going, and they came from real tough backgrounds as well. But and we're all first year college. I'm not first year, but first generation and mostly first generation high school and college. So because you say it a couple of ways. You say it that I really support you, or you say, I don't really think you can do better. Also, if you make it too low, I think you're kind of mediocre and you really can't do better than that. And I wouldn't expect you to do better than that. So just kind of stay where you are. And so that's another, it's tough. It depends on the personal message with the student, and the tough part is that in all of this we're not going to have the opportunity to know them real well. However,
yes,
on any of these, if we have somebody who's willing to donate to a C student, have their own special scholarship of the C student who's on their way up, we could look for that and say, just like somebody, I mean, this another way of approaching it could be, I want to support people who are in architecture because that's my love, and I would like to support this, or I would like to support whatever. Then if we have people that are in that field, then we can support them. If we have somebody who says, okay, I want the C student, that's who's speaking to me, then we could do that and have that exception made, or look for a student who fit into that category, or hit on really tough times that semester, which I think always we can make exceptions once we get them in and we know them, and they're doing fine, and then everybody gets COVID, including them, and blah 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 blah, or horrible things happen in the family. So we don't have to.
And perhaps also in their resume or their presentation letter, they can explain their why they have a low grade. Perhaps say, okay, this is the standard to be able to apply for a scholarship. Let's say, for example, between 80 and 89. However, if you have a lower standard or lower scale, is there a reason that you can explain why you are in a certain situation? And do you see yourself, stepping up in terms of your academic level and not only grades, but
Who would say no? No sense answering a question when you know how they'll answer, true or false. But they can at least explain why they are where they are, and
Yeah.
and obviously they're still applying for.
And if there's any interest for the student, right? I mean, if there's a student that is interested in getting something, let's say they apply, they have a, like, I don't know, like a 60, between 60 and 79, like say a C, but they make the effort to fill up the application and they apply for it and they qualify and we give them a scholarship, we'll be able to see in the next term if that student make, an effort to improve their grades or not. And then he or she may or may not qualify for the next term.
Okay, I'm not at all comfortable going down to a 60.
No, I mean, for exceptions. I mean,
For
to-
acceptance.
to-
For
yeah,
acceptance.
yes.
So what if we stick with 80, which I think is consistent,
Yes.
not with the best of the scholarships, because I know Becca is 85.
Mhm.
But if we go with 80, and then anytime anybody, as they're making their application, if anything they need to explain, they can explain.
Mhm.
That's their chance to pitch their case. And so we will have that information, or they will have the opportunity to make their case.
Mhm.
And that will help us theoretically. I don't know if they do it or for sure, but I know that's their standard. That would allow us to catch Becca students who may have dipped and no longer qualify for Becca. They could apply with Rotary and still maintain in school.
I didn't follow that part.
Okay. Well, right now, the regular Becca students that are going to UABC, my thinking is probably won't qualify for a scholarship from us because their tuition is already covered from Becca.
Okay.
But if they didn't maintain their GPA, then they lost their Becca scholarship. But if it went just down a bit, then they could, they could apply through us and we can be a safety net a bit on that, and then hopefully they'll bring it back up again.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Because the Becca's scale is 85, right? If they fall before 85, they're not, okay, they won't get a scholarship through Becca. I get it.
Yep. So
Okay.
it gives us a chance to help some of those students who may have had a bad semester. And some people take really tough majors too. So I can appreciate that goes. Okay, so let's do that, and then they can make their case if they've had a bad year, and we can look at that.
Well, and I have one question, if we can go back. And
Sure.
what about for those who get A's and A+? What about those? Let's say perhaps some sort of scholarship for excellence, something extra for those students, or it's going to be specific just to cover their tuition?
We could do it that way, but I think if we have exceptions aside, and if we have an abundance of money then I'm fine with it. But if we don't, and we're trying to get it out, then if we have our platform, which could be an 80 that we're looking at or better, so okay, you're being successful, you're a good investment that you can go ahead and make it through. Then I think the next thing we should look at, we've got a student who meets our criteria. Actually, that is the next thing. So here's what I'm thinking. That we would do that at the beginning of our selection process. We would have everybody who's going to work on this there. And we would just start out by talking about our criteria, that they live in our service area, that they need financial assistance to pay tuition. And I've been talking with Scott about how to collect that data automatically off of their application. So we're not transferring numbers and we're not like, I don't know how much this student needs or doesn't or how that goes. So we'll try to get that in a spreadsheet so we can get a relative idea of who has a need and who doesn't. That they're enrolled or accepted by a university in a major department, so they've got some kind of an educational plan going, that they have a GPA of 8.0 or higher is our general requirement. If we decide that, oops. And a demonstrated record of service, especially returning students, because they will have been documenting that along and we'll have that. So we would start with that. What I would say that we would look at then is if they qualify, then GPA wise, since that's what you were talking about, then I would look at need rather than giving a student, even though they're getting all A's, if we gave them one scholarship and they $500 and now they pretty much don't have a major financial need and they, you know, blah, blah, then I'd say good. But another student who may be a 8.5, but has a major gap funding wise, a major need that way, then that might be the student who gets more money just because.
Mm-hmm. And also, just going back to the 8.0 GPA or higher, can that be the 8.0 for the first year of apply, in which they apply, hoping that the next year their GPA would be higher?
Yeah. And
So
if it isn't, they haven't put themselves out of the program. So it's an incentive to try to keep it there.
yes.
So that, and not go below. And if they're having trouble to, you know, obviously make a plan to make it better, which would, you know, which we could talk about and or could be in the letter or in their application.
Okay. So
Okay. So if the group, you know, we would review all of these. Okay, this is who we're looking at, and these are the kind of criteria we're looking at. And then have a discussion before we even start looking at the applications. Have a discussion of the funds that are available and the funding amounts. And it might change year to year depending on how many funds we have available. So it's hard to know, especially in the beginning, depending on the amount of money, okay, and the number of applicants and whatnot. What would be helpful, however, I think in terms of advertising to the students is if we had a target amount. So if a scholarship, this is kind of based on Father Jesse, but if a scholarship was $500 or whatever amount we decide, and so if you would get it, but some students may get more than one scholarship, which is how he does it. And so, because one doesn't do it, they need more money than that. They can't make it on one.
yeah.
And so, but they meet all the other criteria. So it's, but they need additional funds. So, we need to kind of sit down and look at that. But if we had a scholarship amount of say $500 or whatever it would be, it would allow us to advertise that rather than a scholarship, but not ever say how much it is, then students, because we're asking them to do a lot in applying for this. So are they doing it all for $100 or a $50 gift card or what, you know? So I think we need to kind of set an expectation that if you get the scholarship, you get X and so amount. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You can get more than that.
Right. You're right. When there's, it depends on the career the students or the major the student is in and the school as well.
Oh, the school enormous.
The private schools are more expensive. Dental school is more expensive than psychology.
Yep.
So their tuition is different.
Right.
And what I think it would help is just for the student to let us know how much they have to pay for tuition.
That's part of the application process.
That's part of
So
the
what it
application.
is, where they are in their program, how much they have to pay, what is covered. I mean, are they already on a partial scholarship from the university? That happens. Are they getting a Becca? That happens. You know, this or that, this or that. And then say, okay, even after all of that, kind of what are your family resources? Okay, not much. So you're still, you know, $2,000 a semester short. So.
Yes, because there's books. They have to purchase books, and depending on the cost of books also.
Yep. Yeah.
Sometimes that's why Father Jesse said if there is any extra money, they will give it to the students for school expenses, and they get receipts
Right.
for those expenses, which books could be quite a big expense.
Your books can be an enormous expense. It's just trying to keep track of all of those funds.
Yes.
So who's going to do that? That's the question, which is why I would like to start. I agree with that in theory, but I would like to start where you'll get money up to covering your entire tuition.
And maybe we don't have to get too much engaged in terms of details. And I said this because in Los Angeles, when I was helping students to get their scholarship through the program in which I was working for, the student had to just submit an application, an essay, personal essay, and this student and the scholarship was for $500, period.
Right.
They didn't ask how much you need for tuition. They didn't ask for anything. They said, no, it wasn't 500. It was 5,000. It was a $5,000 scholarship. And this young lady, it was the only person who applied for it. She thought it was too difficult to do that. The application process was very simple. And I helped her with her essay, and she got $5,000 scholarship. And the program didn't ask for anything further. They asked her to show up. She was a guest at one of the gatherings, and she gave a presentation. But that really, because there was no other people to be able to work in terms of all these details, and that's something that I'm concerned about, because as it is, how many of our committee is actually active? You've been doing wonderful work,
as you and I sit here.
and you and I are here.
Right.
Bene as well. She's wonderful too. She's been quite active and she participates. But unfortunately, where are the other people that we've been sending emails, and they don't show up for presentations or for meetings. So that's my concern, that we may probably put too much work onto ourselves, and we can just make it a bit more simple. And
and Becca does. Becca has been run by this nitty-gritty part of it. I mean, they've got a lot of people on fundraising, but this nitty-gritty part is really run by two people, mostly just what's her name? Zavala. But anyhow, she's the one that keeps track of it, and has a fairly slick way to do it. But at any rate, so they and I get to this later, but they only reimburse. They don't give students money. They only reimburse what students have paid. And I'm not too sure that's, well, no, Father Jesse talked about, he does that, or they do the bank card thing. And I don't know about the bank card thing, but I mean, I don't know how that works, but if the university takes one, then that could be great. And the student wouldn't have to come up with the cash. But they only reimburse, so they don't have to run around and say, so where are your receipts and what did you really buy with that? And or in an audit, because we have to be real careful about giving money directly to individuals, because that's what this is.
Mhm.
So we can reimburse, I mean, that, you know, we can reimburse a cost that it did go to tuition, you know.
Mhm.
We can verify that. If we give it directly to individuals, then I think we violate our tax exempt status.
I'm not sure how that would work in terms of if by then we have the tax exempt status, which I
Mhm.
hope by next year we do in Mexico.
I do too.
I'm not sure how would it work with Vancouver and the account over there. So this is why it's important to have Ross and Mike
Mhm.
present in one of the meetings so they can talk to us about the financial part of it and how that would play. But again, it's wonderful work that you're doing. But I think the most simple way that we can do it based on the number of people that we are
Right.
and the availability that we're going to have in the future.
Mhm.
If there is more people who would like to help here, Brenda is wonderful, but you know, she is, as it is very busy with
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
programs, and she's going to be even more busy because she's going to have a position within the local government.
Right.
Um,
Good for them and good for her.
yes, absolutely. So perhaps just a flat scholarship amount to say, as I said, this is it was a federal housing that was giving out this scholarship, and they wanted to give more scholarships, but students wouldn't want to go through any trouble to apply for a scholarship. And I said it wasn't too much of requirement. It was just complete an application and submit a 500-word essay,
Mhm.
personal essay, and that was all the requirement. They didn't ask for anything else. And this girl, the only girl who applied for it, she got $5,000.
Yeah.
And they didn't ask for anything else. Nothing else. No time for volunteering. Nevertheless, she volunteered as a ESL teacher for seniors. But this came out of her. She said, "How can I help in my community?" And I had the ESL program with the seniors, and she was so willing to teach ESL to Hispanic seniors next
Yeah,
door.
good for her. Good for
So,
her.
and again, there's as much as we can do as volunteers too. And you're gonna have to go to Alaska in some point, and I'm not sure if I'll be as available as I've been for the past 2
Mhm.
years in Rarity, as I'll be working on other items too. So
Right,
it
exactly.
depends on the work that this may imply on volunteers who would like to continue with this. Hopefully, this will be something that will continue for many, many more years, supporting the
Well,
community.
I would hope so. I would hope so. And this, and it's interesting. This is the putting it together is the tougher grind. When this is all together, and you're absolutely right, and I do hear you, and that's nothing I can do myself. That's for sure, all myself. But what I would see the committee coming together would be to come together in the selection process. The materials would all be there, we'd discuss the criteria, we divide them up. These ones don't meet the minimum requirement. This kid, you know, lives in someplace else, you know, we're not in the service area. This kid hasn't passed a class in 3 years, so they don't meet the GPA, whatever. We triage the pile, we get them down, and if we have a lot of applicants, which I don't think we will, because we're asking a tremendous amount, and we may want to trim that down, but at any rate, we look at those, and then we start saying, okay, how many 500, you know, put these, you know, put them in order, discuss it, and start dealing out the $500 packets. So I see that, you know, taking the most of a day, but that's what I would see on that. in terms of the committee, in terms of the group needing to do it. And
Mhm.
then the group would need to meet up to 3 times a day, or 3 times a day, 3 times a year for distribution. So if we're going to require service, and which we may decide not to, maybe it's just not worth it. But if we're going to require it, then we need to, you know, we need to be able to have them when they come in for distribution. Well, and I've got all of that written up, but so anyhow, that's kind of the situation. I think in a day we can distribute it. It's a lot of work done ahead, and that would fall to me, but getting it together. But this is how much money. These are the applicants. There's their packet. We go through and go as far down the list, and then start back through the list again if we still have money. Okay, so who now could get a second $500
Mhm.
and do that until we've distributed whatever percent of the money we decide to distribute.
Okay.
So I think that would take a day, and I'm hoping we can get them going on that. But you know, if nobody wants to do it, then nobody does. I think they will, and I hope the other part would, let me see, what am I going to do here? Get my other one up. The other time that the whole group would need to be there, or a bunch of it. I don't know why this is not going down like I asked it to. There you go. Oh, we got it. Would be the fund distributions. So I see those happening for semester programs happening in October and February. If we're going to keep this simple, we're just doing reimbursements. So you've already paid your tuition, and here I'm going to pay you back to whatever degree. If they're in the quarter programs, they would also come to the October and the February ones, but another one in May, more or less, however their months fall, but at any rate.
Okay.
So we do October, February, and then one in May.
Okay.
And
Do you want me to share that?
sure.
The file? Okay, let me look for it. I have it on my computer.
Oh, you can't see it on mine?
No, I only see the charts, the grading scale.
And it says you are screen sharing, and that's exactly what I have up on my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, put yours up if it's going to be.
Okay, let me see. Participant can share the time. Okay. I think minutes. No, that's not it. It was, no, I showed, this is what you just showed. And I remember there were 2 different files.
Yes, it's a fund distribution file.
Fund distribution. Okay.
And that was the second email I sent because I forgot to attach on the first one.
Yeah. Oh, no, I got the 2 different files here. Fund distribution, selection process.
Oh, no, you hit the selection. That's the one we just did.
Okay, and then fund distribution.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
Okay.
So there'd be 3 days roughly that would happen. And the students would come, they'd know ahead, they're going to have for service documentation, a written description of what they did and what they learned, a page or 2 on that, pictures or whatever they want. And then if we want them to prepare a short presentation, 2 to 3 for Rotary Club, or if we decide that we're asking too much, if they're only going to do 2 hours a month, then that's quite a bit to ask. I mean, there's not a lot of content there, but we might just get the written one and then decide who we would like to go back and ask.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they're going
Tell
to bring their service documentation and verification, a copy of their grades from the past semester, so we can see that they did enroll, they did complete the semester, they did all that sort of stuff, and a receipt for payment of their fees. And this is basically how Becca does it, but they don't have a service requirement, so they don't do that. Students just show up with their grades and their receipt.
Okay.
And then
Well,
we would bring our cash or payment type if we do the check card, if we decide to do that in a copy machine, or if we thought we needed it, but basically we show up with that in the student files.
you mean already bring cash or payment type discussed below? Okay.
Right.
Copy machine or use phones.
If we need to have copies of anything like their grades that we want to include, or we can write them down, or however we keep track of all of that.
Okay. So do you think perhaps Brenda's office would be a place to have this done? She has a very, very good copy machine,
Yeah,
and that probably would be a good place to
Yeah.
to do this. Okay. There's
okay.
funding distribution used Becca.
Yeah, so as I said, Becca asks for your receipt, shows you already paid it, then they give you your $411, which is what they're currently, they're $350, I think, what they're giving out, while their tuition's $411, but whatever, everybody gets the same amount regardless of what they paid. So that's how that works. And then I took this off of, and thank you for getting that, I took this off of your email from Father Jesse.
Okay. And this is good. We mentioned this before, because anything extra could be used for books or sometimes even uniforms. There's a student who graduated for as a dental surgeon, and she had to pay for her own uniforms as well and shoes. So,
The only
like-
question in that, we can talk to our financial, I'm fine with it, but so long as we don't get in trouble for not accounting how the money was spent.
Mhm.
If we have to account for how it's spent, then we gotta go and start looking for everybody's receipts and then keep track of them to read,
Mhm.
which wouldn't be my favorite thing to do. But,
True.
but
But I mean, if it's like a one single fee, saying perhaps as an example, you said $500. This is the scholarship, $500, and it's for tuition. So, but again,
because
this
they've
is a
already
different
verified
system.
they've spent 500 or more in tuition, so we give them that and it's done, and they've already spent it, so they may use that for gas money or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. At that point, we reimburse. You know, that's just their cash flow and how they do it.
Yeah.
But on those distribution centers, if we had, it would be, it's our chance to meet the students. So if we had it kind of set up in 3 groups, either they come in and, say hello, we check on their contact information, make sure that's all current. If they need a photo release thing, we've got that on. We get a copy of their grades. That gets checked off. They go to the service center, they turn in their documentation and talk to the people there. It'd be different people. Talk to the people there and decide on, okay, so what's your service plan for the next semester? Is it going to be the same? Or are you going to do something different? Or are you looking at something else? Give them ideas, whatever, kind of write up what it is the plan is for service. And once that's done, then they go to the payment center and turn in their receipt for what they paid, which we keep a copy of to show that they actually paid it. And they received their funds
Mhm.
and signed for them. All of it goes back into the student's file, all those documentations, and the file goes in the drawer, and out they go.
Wow.
So if we had people to, and bilingual obviously is an issue, but if we had people at those centers to kind of meet the students and see what they're doing, and check their records, the payment center wouldn't even have to have super bilingual people at it, maybe, because the documents would be right in front of them. You got all the documents? Oh, yep, they paid the money. Here's your money, out the door.
Mhm. So it would be 3 different tables with perhaps 2 people on each,
Yeah,
you,
I
you call
think-
it service center.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
2 volunteers.
Yep.
And hopefully there will be like, even if it's one person. It could be a volunteer Rotarian.
Mhm. right.
But we
and-
need to see how many of the committee members would volunteer for it, and then if any other member from
Right, and we may need
community
to
be
pull-
involved.
pull from the community, because at least one person there on each of those groups needs to be bilingual.
Mhm.
And especially in the service center, because there's a discussion about what you're gonna do. And so everybody's clear kind of in making the plan and what they'd like to choose from.
Mhm.
So,
So we need
So
more
that-
bilingual volunteers.
yeah, oh gosh, do we ever, do we ever? But as time goes along, if we get stuff rolling, the students themselves could serve as a translator on that. As we get bilingual students and bilingual graduates, they can.
It would
Oh.
be wonderful that out of this, we'll be having more young people to take a leading position or
Yeah.
leadership position and contribute in that way. Yeah.
It would be, and I think they would see the point of it. And so if we can find some that would help us and be involved in running it, especially just keeping the papers together and the documents
Mhm.
done, then we've got it.
Yeah, we can keep a scanned copy of everything and create those files in a hard drive and keep those
Yep.
for.
And when I was working with Becca last year, and we didn't have to do all this part because we were just gonna raise the funds and give them to Becca, but that didn't work. So, but I had a file, and the students were writing their histories and whatnot, which they're gonna do as part of the application process. We have them, write up their story and take some pictures of themselves in action and all like that. So that's part of their application process, so it'll be in their file, but we had exactly that. We had a Google Drive folder that had in fact, I still have it, has all of the students' histories, and that's what we use for the newsletter, and that's what we use for the brochure, and then, that next part becomes easy because we have all the information we need to
Mhm.
create that.
Wonderful. Leslie, you've
We
done
did
so
that.
much.
The whole thing is, once we get people to get them in terms of people who are donating, to get them engaged and understand what goes on, and the difference they're making is to keep them engaged, so we're not always trying to raise funds from scratch. And that's kind of the part that's coming up. Then we go every other month, put out a newsletter. And in about 2 days, we made newsletters for the whole year out of all the stuff that the students submitted and we just edited it and put it in the format, and it was ready to go. So those can be set up and sent out automatically every 2 months to let people know, oh, and this is this student, and this is what they did, and this is how they're doing it, and this is how your money's being used here, and here's how your money's being used there, and here's a service project that somebody did over here, and blah, 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 and kind of lets them know what's happening.
Yeah, with whatever materials we can gather.
Yeah.
From
That
that,
those
there will be plenty of
materials,
material.
they're all in their files because they need to do that in order to apply.
Mhm,
They,
mhm,
they write their essays,
mhm.
and the questions that they were writing on are exactly the same questions I used when I made the newsletter. It's like, what are your plans for the future, and what's been a challenge as you've gone through? I mean, they can choose how they want to present themselves and what they have to say, but just edit it down into a paragraph and put one of the pictures with it and plug it in. We made a format, so you just plug the picture in here, plug the edited piece in there. Done.
And I like the fact that you said every other month.
Yeah.
So that really keeps people engaged, and sometimes, it's not too overwhelming for
Right.
certain people, because sometimes we get so many emails that in my experience with Tony Nevares, who's the sponsor for the scholarship program in Tijuana, he said, I don't open any email. I just wait to speak with you, and then you give me the update. And then I send him, okay, I talk to him and I send him the pictures, and he opens the email. But
Right,
it depends on the people. But there's people who would like to actually follow up, or every 2 months, oh, this is happening. And you're so right. There's people that actually need that to continue helping and to see that things are really making a difference for the students.
Well, I've got a couple of things going that I think will keep that pool going, that won't take a lot of work. So the newsletter, because the information's already created, it's just a matter of editing and putting it in there. It doesn't take real long to do. Again, I think I can get the whole year's newsletters done in a day or two. And the other thing is that I am trying to get people on the hook and hopefully continue, is when they do contribute, send them a thank you, but also send them a certificate that allows them to donate to the scholarship in somebody's name, or in their club's name, or in whatever. So, or in their business name. And it's just a certificate that said, whatever, my grandma Filer, in her name, there is a scholarship established for the students in Mexico. And the next year you go back, well, Grandma Filer gonna re-up her thing, and it's just something that acknowledges it, rather than thank you for your contribution, we appreciate it, and away you go. It's something a little more personal that wouldn't, after you have it all set up, doesn't take any more time. You just type in the name. You just type in the name and send it. So.
And perhaps we can do this online. I'm not sure what do you think about sending emails instead of sending regular mail?
Yeah, no, that's how I would imagine doing it. And then it's just a matter of, you donated, I'm going to send you a thank you. I'm going to send you a certificate. And because when you donate, I'm going to ask if you're donating it in the name of somebody. So I already know that information. Okay, good. And I can ask you anybody you would like to have the newsletter sent to. You can include those, or if you're a group and you want everybody to receive it, wonderful. Otherwise, no, whatever.
I like that idea about the certificates. That's very cool.
Yeah, I do. I think it will help save on having to recruit so much money other places, and it will let people know that, because their money really is working. Their contribution really is working, and they're helping every kid that is going through here, because it all goes to the same pot. So
yes, And also, once I think Scott has done a great job on updating the club's website, and I hope it
Good.
gets published soon. So that's another way to, you know, expose all the work that is done and in the scholarship program, and then set up a specific area where people can just make a donation there too. That's another
Exactly.
source.
That's how I would see it. And the newsletters that we make, then have them archived on the website. So you could look at that, or you could go back if you're just doodling around and look at some past ones. And it's like, this really does exist and it really is ongoing.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And anyhow, so
Wonderful.
and then, you know, it can be the featured one for that month, and we can send it out in a variety of ways, and then it can then 2 months on down the line, put that in the archives and put up the next one. And also email it to them so they get it, have access to it a couple of ways.
I think that if it's something that is done like every 2 months, like you're saying, and see how we can find the people for instance, in what consistent in terms of the website, Scott will be able to do that as long as not too frequently. Obviously, he has so many things on his time as well. So I think it's getting quite well done. You're done so much work and so wonderful work, very organized. And as you said, perhaps this is the most challenging time, is to putting all this together. And then the next part is to get the engagement of the participation of the committee, and see what role each one of us will play, so that we'll have that clear, and I'm pretty sure we'll comply with what we commit to. Right.
And we might be able to get whoever our treasurer is to come and be the person who actually gives out the funds. That would be nice. And then they would know it was done the way they need it done, and whatever's signed the way they need it signed. So that'll clear that up. So that would be wonderful. And then it's fun because you get to meet the students.
Yes.
So, and so I think that will be reinforcing back to the committee members. And
yes.
Yeah.
And perhaps invite one of the students to participate in one of the socials.
Yeah.
A good way
do
to
that, or to make a
students.
presentation at a meeting, or any of that, or it could be great.
For next meeting, well, is there something pending? I don't think we need to make any changes to your notes. I think they were pretty complete.
Yeah.
It's just
I don't
consensus
think
in
we-
terms of
Other than 8.0, if we decided on that, we'll use that as our standard, and then obviously you make exceptions. Becca makes exceptions all the time, you know, but it lets students know what we're expecting, and that's what we would like to see. Because job-wise and everything else, it puts you in a special category. And are we okay with 500? I mean, I put all that stuff in red on there because that was just an idea, just so we had something to discuss. But if we do $500 as the size, or more as the size of the scholarship, then I think that would be good. Or we can put that, or
that's what I need a little bit of clarification. So $500 would be just as a set amount of the scholarship, regardless of how much the tuition is?
No, I would say or the amount of, it's 500 or more, not to exceed the amount of tuition.
Not to exceed.
Yeah.
So it can be less than 500 if their tuition is, like, per se, $350 or $400.
Right.
I see. Okay, no more than $500.
Right.
Okay. Good.
No, it's not no more than, it's $500 or the amount of, not to exceed $500 or more. So they could get more, because they might get to $500, but not to exceed the amount of their tuition. So what the boost it gives is to the kids that are not at UABC. UABC, you get an enormous boost because it's so much cheaper
Mhm.
just by getting in. But the kids who, for whatever reason, their program isn't there, or there wasn't room in the program, to accept them. They qualified, but they only have so many slots, and so not
Okay.
everybody gets in. You have to go someplace else.
Okay. That
So-
was just a little confusing for me because with Father Jesse, we already have the name of the student and the amount for the student scholarship. And it's different per student, per career, and the term
Right.
they're in. And so,
So he
But
works to cover their complete tuition.
I'm sorry.
His goal is to cover their complete tuition.
Yes, for most of them, just for the student who was going for dental surgeon, she had two different sponsors because they didn't feel at the beginning, they didn't feel quite certain in terms of the tuition. And they made a petition to Covina for a certain amount, and Covina said, okay, they answered to their petition. But they didn't know that in the future she needed actually more money for her tuition and books and other expenses that she needed. So she had another sponsor for those other expenses. But they respected what was agreed upon with Covina Rorty. Nevertheless, she got a second sponsor.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, because they do it more that way. I think it's going to be easier, but maybe not, but I think it's going to be easier if we have a pot of money and distribute it rather than hoping that the sponsors come through. If we hook somebody to a sponsor and the sponsor doesn't come through,
Mhm.
that would be my nightmare. So I want to know that there's already money in the bank, and then
Yes.
and
it can happen. It can happen with and I just learned that with the student again because I had her as a guest last week, and she said she was very thankful, and many of other sponsors didn't follow through, so that put some students and the committee in a very detrimental situation to try to look for more funding.
right.
But I'm just glad and thankful that Covina Rorty has been very consistent with what they agreed upon.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, and we may get there and then be able to be more more generous. In it, as we go through, I can see, and something I have on the agenda for later, talking about maybe just getting started. We just need to get started, but looking to have some money set aside, which might be for small things like I need a new computer, or I need computer software that I can't afford because I'm in architecture. I had students in architecture that their computer wouldn't run the software. So, or that I need my uniform and I can't afford it, or I need something smaller, sorts of one-off kinds of things that we might do. And we might also hold some money back. I know Becca, Steve always says, no, you got to have money for 2 years. So he has this money and he has next year's money already in the bank. But they know exactly how many students and they know exactly how much they're going to give. So it makes it possible to do that. And so
they work on their budget.
Yeah. And then they don't do more. So even though that's not enough money to let the kid go to school, they're going to have to come up with a bunch more if they're in a private school. They don't do more. This is, which is fine. I'm not faulting it, but it makes budgeting a lot easier. It's like, nope, it's this. You get one per family. That's it. I know the numbers and I can budget it. So.
Well, it would be quite a support to have this scholarship program for those who don't get a scholarship through Beca. Since they have their own criteria, perhaps other students will be able to apply through Rotary Club La Misión for a scholarship, which is great.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you've done a wonderful work, intense and very organized.
we'll see, but I think we can get it rolling. It just takes a whole lot, and I appreciate all the work you do. Because I would just be sitting here by myself otherwise.
I I know, but I'm looking forward to see how this is the end work for next year to start. It's wonderful that you are so committed to it as well, and I will continue you know, supporting this project, because I do believe that this is a way to really make a difference in a community. So
Yeah.
educating the community so the community can help themselves, it's
Right.
very important. And scholarship would be a good way to go through that path.
Mhm.
And I've seen that working. So I really look forward for this to work for Santa Anita, because once they educate their own community, they can go out to other communities nearby and
Right.
be helpful to them.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
And we
thank
can-
you so much, Leslie, for all you're
You're
doing.
welcome. You're welcome. We'll see what we can do, but I think it will be good, and I really appreciate your help.
Oh, I'm very glad to do it, and thank you for everything you're doing.
My goal is to kind of get the whole big picture wrapped up and materials printed so that we can start fundraising this summer.
Okay,
And then we'll do applications in the fall and distribution next January. So we got a year to put it all
Okay.
together.
so
but-
fundraising, and don't worry, I'm already putting the word out there.
Oh, you're
for
the
funding.
best. You're the best. That's the big question mark in my mind. It's like, oh my God.
So I'm already you know, passing the word. We're having a scholarship program, and get ready, and we're gonna get help.
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
And also let's hope for everything to go well with the wine festival, because part of those proceeds are coming to our
Yes.
committee.
Okay, and
this
I'm
program.
sorry, I'm not going to be here. I could be more help, but I'm
In
going to
July?
be in Guineas.
Oh, you're not gonna be here in July?
No,
Oh,
no, that's peony harvest.
oh, true.
So we'll be in Alaska harvesting peonies, but we're sending a couple hundred of them to Scott for his wedding.
Oh, nice.
So
You know, I think he mentioned something about having some of those the flowers that you harvest for the wine fest. But you know, but we need to have that settle down. That would be great to have, you know, your flowers at the festival too.
well, yeah, we could do that. We
Okay,
could do it for sure.
I'll keep that in mind so I can bring it to the agenda.
Okay. Sounds great.
Thank you, Leslie. Say hi to Royce for me.
Okay,
For me.
I will do it. Sorry to keep you
And-
so long, but
No, not at all. I think it was wonderful. I'm going to, well, this is going to be recorded, and I'll just forward it to the committee so they can watch it. I
Mhm.
try to take some notes, but sometimes, you know, I might miss important things.
okay.
Thank
Have a
you
good-
again,
Okay,
and good night.
okay, bye.
Next meeting would be I mentioned to Gabe if we could do meetings every other Tuesday. What do you think about that?
That would be fine. I just need to be able to get through all the stuff I'm getting through. But you know, if everybody is, the big parts we have done. So the next major thing I want to do is to, if there's a group to speak to, is talk about what I was talking about, the fundraising and how to get people interested and involved in, you know, like the dedication, dedicated scholarships and those kinds of newsletter and all of that sort of stuff. So
So
that-
there's the-
so if we have that, but I can, yeah, I get that part out so that people understand that piece, and then I'll work on getting the advertising advertising stuff out.
Uh-huh. Because I know you made a list of items for discussion. I'm trying to look for that file.
And
And let's
I
see,
got it here.
and I can.
I did it. But some of those I can,
Okay.
okay, so we did the third one. The donor recruitment is my next one, donor retention, which we could do those together, dividing up the pot. We can just wait and talk about that later. So I think if I had one more to do donor recruitment and retention, I can do both of those. That's the next two, but we'll just hit them both at once. And I think I'd have enough stuff that I can put the brochures, polish off the brochures, and would be ready to.
So
I don't know what we need to do. Present to the club as a whole. Is that our next one? I don't know at what point we need to do that.
I think at the end, once everything is already structured and settled and agreed upon within the committee, we can just present to the club.
Okay.
So today you cover the first one, selection process of students and funding. Second one and third one would be donor recruitment and donor retention.
Right.
Do you want to do this on January the 31st, which is next Tuesday, or the following, which is the February the 7th?
I can do it.
What do you think in terms of how you see this, the list of items?
Well, what if we give them a week off?
Mm-hmm.
And they might, and we still have enough time. The following week is my family reunion. All my kids are showing up the following week, so that gives me enough time to deal with that.
Gives you time with family.
Yeah.
And then February, there's the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. But my question was, since we are postponing Birdie Kids, again, that's why I was thinking about having a meeting every other Tuesday.
Okay.
So if that would be the case, that would be the next meeting, February the 7th, and then the 21st. There will be only 2 meetings per month. Would that be enough to continue working?
That's all I was doing anyhow, because we were doing back and forth. So
yes.
Yep. And
So
I might move the 21st to the 28th because the family reunion ends on the 20th.
Okay. So
but if I work hard and get it all, well, I've got most of these things outlined, but I'm thinking maybe do the 28th, the 7th, and then the 28th as kind of everything all together.
Okay. So scholarship meetings would be the next one, February the 7th, and then the 28th, and then the 14th and 21st, we're not going to have meetings.
No.
Okay, perfect.
Let's do it that way, because that gives me time that I think I can just, and maybe on the 28th even, we might even look at meeting in person and passing things out and saying, put it in people's hands. This is what this looks like. This is what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Blah, 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 blah.
An in-person. Okay. And that would be perhaps the reason why I was asking at 5 o'clock on Tuesday was for Brenda. So Brenda, I spoke with Brenda and she said my time would be best after 5 because she's done with everything she has to do within the community and the school and her duties. So,
but that does make it at dark. So maybe we won't have it in person. Then.
Or we can try to have it on an earlier time on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
On the 28th, we can see if we can have it. And if Brenda can make it, well, perhaps we can just, keep her updated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that would be good. And that, because it would be nice, because then you got the brochure, when you try to do it on the screen, and it's just not the same. I could try to put together a packet and say, this is the packet of the program, and kind of do our final hurrah on that. And then
what time would you think would be best? the 28th.
Let's
have
go to
the meeting
one because we've done one before.
at
if
1
that
p.m.,
works with you.
1 to 2 p.m.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll work on the minutes and I'll send this perhaps maybe tomorrow. Because I
Okay.
need to download the video and put it in YouTube link so it will fit.
Okay. Well, bless you. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for all this work. It's beautiful.
Okay. Now we will get it together and get some kids in school or let them stay in school and not be so stressed.
Yes, yes. We'll see in time, you know, all these results and I think we're gonna see it. I
Yeah.
hope to really
I
see
hope
that
so. I hope
change
so
in
too.
that community. And then just being you know, having this young group of people working together in continuing this, because
Right.
there is as far as we can go, and then other people to continue with the goal.
Yeah, exactly. That's the hope.
Yes. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.